Hey everyone, Mia here from Resonance Astrology, and welcome to this week's weekly overview where we're going to take a look at what is going on in the cosmos so you know how this can apply to your life and the collective. And we're going to talk about April 20th till April 26th of 2026. And we're entering this week with still a lot of Aries energy active, but the main tension between all this Aries energy that is active is really this feeling of wanting to move, but also feeling very much restricted and having the impulse, but then also needing to cultivate the awareness and the responsibility. So this is a week where we start off on a very, very frustrated note. And this is due to the triple conjunction of Mars, Mercury, and Saturn in Aries. And then afterwards, the speed really kind of picks up. Well, we mellow it down in the middle of the week. There aren't really any major transits, but by the end of the week, we have Venus in Taurus conjoining Uranus in Taurus at 29 degrees before both of them leave into Gemini for good, which is, a bit of erratic energy. We're going to get to all of this in a second. First, right now, we're going to focus on Monday, on the present moment. We right now have Mars, Mercury, and Saturn in Aries building up towards a triple conjunction around 7-8 degrees of Aries, so this is still very much beginning degrees. If you have any placements in the cardinal sign around that, I would say 0 to 10 degrees of cardinal signs, so Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. This will probably affect you the most, just because it's either going to be a conjunction or an opposition or a square, and these tend to be the most frustrating. But I will say also the ones that are getting the squares, so Capricorn and Cancer, I feel like there might also be a lot of potential just because squares are ruled by Mars. So there might be a bigger urge to overcome this. And obviously this is also affecting other signs. And again, even if you have any planets around that degrees, like even if you are, let's just say Aquarius rising, like you're a fixed rising. Well, you have Pluto there, but if you're a fixed rising, like obviously this is affecting you as well. If you have even just Venus or Mars or any other planet in that range of the cardinal signs. And this is really, let's break it down a bit more, right? Because we have Mars, the principle of like action, of impulse, and really wanting to do things in its domicile right now. You know, this is a Mars that feels very much and is very much at home in the sign of Aries. And then we have Mercury in Aries, which is all about like lightning speed thoughts and and wanting to say the thing and wanting to do the thing, you know, like thinking and immediately doing. But then we have Saturn chiming in, which is more about restricting things and maybe setting boundaries first. And this whole transit, especially Mars and Saturn together, can feel a bit like pushing the gas and the brake pedal at the same time. And, you know, wanting to act, wanting to speak, and wanting to decide, but something is just kind of holding you back. Like a sense of, And this is where that frustrating feeling is kind of coming in. Somebody messaged me back on Instagram and was like, I feel like I'm walking through mud. And I'm like, yes, that is exactly the feeling. Like besides the, you know, pushing the gas and brake pedal at the same time metaphor, I like the metaphor of walking through mud a lot right now as well, especially I think also mentally. It might feel like there are a lot of thoughts racing around and things that you might want to say out loud, but maybe it's better if you don't do that right now. And there is actually another metaphor I want to bring up with this, because if you don't already know, we have these amazing benches here where I live with a lot of quotes, and I love quotes. I'm such a quotey person. And there's one bench that popped back into my mind last week as a reflection, as a small meditation. And it was, if you go slow or fast, the path in front of you stays the same. And for me, this feels so fitting for the moment we're having right now, because Mars likes to conquer, Mars likes to do things. And so obviously when Mars is in its domicile, there is always a new quest of, let's just say we're going to climb a mountain, right? The mountain in front of you doesn't move. The journey says the same, But if you decide to rush on top of it, arrive there completely exhausted, unless you have extremely good stamina, also very valid. Maybe you're a mountain climber and you do this every day, no biggie. Or maybe you want to move it with awareness and you want to look more deeply at the flora and fauna along your path and just go towards the mountain and climb the mountain with a bit more preparation. Right? I think this is, Aries in general as an archetype just wants immediacy and wants to do things now. But Saturn also kind of chimes in here and is like, not everything needs to happen right now. There is a wisdom in how things are unfolding and not going against nature. It is, I think, very interesting, by the way, which is coming up right now intuitively for me, is that I have been kind of listening a bit more to the Tao Te Ching this past week, and I think the concept of Wu Wei, which maybe we can meditate a bit more on this because there's going to be a separate video just for Saturn and Mars coming up tomorrow. But this whole concept of Wu Wei and which like kind of translates to non-action, but it doesn't necessarily mean not doing anything. I think this is the whole concept where a lot of like West got it wrong about, surrender, and it means like not doing anything and you're lazy and you're passive. And we can talk, what passive even means. But essentially it's just not going against nature, not forcing things to happen if they don't want to happen. And right now you're really making your life a lot more difficult if you're trying to force things to happen if they just don't want to happen right now. If you're trying to force a conversation and it's just not meant to kind of happen right now. So yes, we're going to meditate more on this tomorrow. I think the theme of self-regulation is also very big right now. Not reacting immediately, pausing, sitting what's coming up, if it's especially anger, projection, or urgency, like a sense of urgency. And I think there's a lot of self-sovereignty in taking that action first towards yourself, in maybe sleeping over something, in re-regulating yourself first before you go out and feel the urge of like, if just this person or just this project or just this thing would go, right? Like there's always this feeling of focusing on the external world, but we might need to focus briefly on our internal world first, and then on the external world. And yes, I want to also talk a bit more about Mercury, because there was this whole reel I watched on Instagram not too long ago, and it was talking about deciding, and the etymology of deciding, quite interestingly, is to cut something off. Which means that every decision we are making means we are also rejecting something. And this is very Martian. This is very Martian, right? And so I think if we can think about deciding as a form of rejection and bring this back to our own self-empowerment and self-sovereignty. Oh, I hope I'm pronouncing that word correctly. Sovereignty, right? So, instead of waiting to be rejected, which oftentimes we do, we wait for the external world to give us a sign or for somebody else to kind of tell us what they think or feel instead of us taking the initiative. And that is all fair and game to some extent. But there is a very empowering shift if we realize that by deciding, it is me who is doing the rejecting. We are choosing, I am choosing, you are choosing if you are deciding. Which is interesting if we look at the sign opposite of Aries, which is Libra, which is often known as a sign of like indecision. So the medicine right now is to come back to you and decide and do the rejection, because every time you decide, you're also rejecting something. So if you're deciding to be in a relationship with someone, you're also rejecting not being in a relationship with other people. If you are deciding to buy this house, you're also rejecting to living in a flat or your whatever other living situation. So there is always a rejection that comes with decision. And I think with Mercury being in this Mars ruled sign of Aries, and Mars always has to do with severance and cutting things off. The malefics are planets that kind of take away things from our lives. And I don't mean that in any bad way whatsoever. I actually mean that in a very, very empowering way, because it's like you do the choosing, you do the deciding, you do the rejecting. So think of decisions as a form of cutting something off, which is gonna in turn bring you closer to the thing that you actually want. And also on a very practical note, sorry guys, we need to dwell on Aries right now, but Aries rules the head in medical astrology. So do watch out this week, especially in the beginning, for headaches, migraines, overstimulation, and any impulsive movements that might cause accidents, because the head right now is very prominent, and there could be, you know, with Mars, there's just more room for head injuries to happen in any sort of way, especially maybe blood related. So do be careful if you operate any machinery, especially around Monday, Tuesday, when this triple conjunction is happening. And also be careful of not overstimulating yourself, because it's so much easier right now to get headaches and migraines. A lot of people I know have been getting a lot more headaches and migraines. And again, with Saturn in Aries and also Neptune in Aries, very easy right now to also feel burnt out. And burnt out for me is really, I mean, at the end of the day, it's really just your body giving you signals, giving you symptoms. And it's about what you do with that. What you do with that. Are you going to take care of yourself? And that is self-empowerment too, okay? If you're feeling burned out, your body is signaling to you to take care of yourself first, because there is probably too much focus on external things. And I know that's easier said than done. Sometimes we can't just, you know, take a day off or be like, I'm going to put my entire life on hold because there's things like finances, right? So I'm not trying to be here and say that, oh, it's so easy, you know, just take a day off and just take care of yourself. I know that's not a luxury that everybody can either has the time or energy or even financial means to do so. But I do just want to put it out there that whatever little time you have or resources that you have, do take extra care of yourself and also of your nervous system. Because what is also happening on Monday, Sun enters Taurus. Sun is already in Taurus by the time this is out. So happy Taurus season. We are shifting. The Sun at least is shifting from fire to earth. And there is also a bigger emphasis on the nervous system, like with Taurus, with the Sun in Taurus, when it's Taurus season, which it's interesting, it doesn't even feel like it because there is still so much Aries energy in the air, but there is the Sun, you know, going from an exalted position into a position where it doesn't have any specific dignity, and it's really going more towards wanting to ground, wanting to embody things first. So yes, I think the body slowly starts catching up to everything that was initiated in Aries, which can be overwhelming if you haven't been taking care so much of yourself, and your body might really show you right now that, hey, slow down, slow TF down. Or maybe you're like, hey, actually, I'm realizing I'm getting quite good at self-regulation and like I'm good at taking care of myself. Like I've kind of been having that realization for myself, which is insane. Like Aries season, the past few years has always wrecked me, right? But all of this, I think everything that is happening in Aries right now is an echo back to, I would say, so far as 2023, when the eclipses first started happening in the Aries Libra axis, and then gradually this has been prominent more and more into our lives, and now the things are really happening that kind of started back then. Yes. Okay, and then we kind of enter like midweek, which is really a lot more quiet, and more about integration. You know, all of this is still active in the background. So even though there aren't any major transits happening midweek, like all of this is still very, very much present. And I'm actually glad, as a matter of fact, that there aren't any other transits happening midweek, because what we're having is more than enough to deal with. We have the moon moving through Cancer and Leo during that time. So there is a lot of emotional processing and building towards expression, which is the moon from like Cancer to Leo. And then we come to Friday, which is another very big and major day where we have Venus conjunct Uranus in Taurus, 29 degrees of Taurus, and both of them afterwards leave Gemini for good. Especially Uranus leaves Gemini for good, which is a big, big, big shift. So this is the last spark, of a cycle that really began around 2018 and 2019 when Uranus first moved into the sign of Taurus. So there's a whole story arc that we are finishing. And, the themes when Venus and Uranus come together, there is always this sense of a shift, and often unexpected one. But I'm questioning if it really is so unexpected this time around, because this is really just that final blow we are getting. We have been getting this pretty much every year since that time, right? But there is a shift. We have been shifting everything around our relationships, our values, our finances, and this urge of, things that usually feel very stable kind of being thrust into the realm of liberation and stability. Uranus and Taurus isn't necessarily, they don't really vibe well together. And, a sign that is about slowness, and then Uranus chimes in and is about I'm going to change things quickly, and I'm going to do a 180, and I'm going to break you open, and I'm going to surprise you. It's just energy that doesn't really mesh well together. I like that it is Venus in her domicile coming together with Uranus one last time before both of them leave. And I think Uranus and Taurus in general has just been, deeply destabilizing for our body and for our nervous system. I think this is an energy in the background for this week and also for last week, especially, this last few degrees, like Uranus being at 28, 29 degrees. This is also very rough on the body and our nervous systems. So this has definitely also been creating a lot of tension in the background and also a sense of urgency besides all that Aries stuff. So I do think Venus and Uranus coming together one last time can really feel like this moment of, releasing this final jolt of okay, this is now really finally over. And we also have a first quarter moon happening in the sign of Leo on that same day, which does also serve for bold, expressive, and emotional release, and can add drama for sure, and can also add a lot of courage into really, wanting to be seen in your expression of what is happening. So definitely, I think probably a good day to be in ritualistic therapy in whatever way. Uranus and Taurus has really been throwing our lives upside down, especially fixed rising signs, that is Scorpio, obviously also Taurus, and Leo and Aquarius. Which I find that's why I love that we're also getting that first quarter moon in Leo, because this is kind of the build up towards that Scorpio full moon we're getting next week. They have really been, under scrutiny of Uranus and Taurus, and I'm in this club as well, and I'm honestly more than glad that Uranus is leaving Taurus for good, because it really hasn't been easy. Sure, it has been liberating, but it has also been extremely destabilizing. Yes. Then on that same day, Venus moves into the sign of Gemini, and we get Venus in a completely different new field. Venus in Gemini tends to be a lot more curious, a lot more open-minded, a lot more fluid about how to be in relationship with other people. Gemini, being the sign of the twins, often likes to take on different roles. Yes, but we're going to talk more about this transit in term of it when it does things, once Venus starts doing things. Yes, and then obviously on the weekend, Uranus follows. This is probably the biggest shift. And enters Gemini for good. Uranus enters Gemini for good. We had this energy briefly already last year, and now Uranus is in Gemini for good. We're finally at that moment that everyone has been talking about, where it's the outers are finally all in their respective new signs. They've taken their places, and now it's really okay. They're going to accompany us for the upcoming years. That is Uranus and Gemini for the next 7 years. That is Neptune in Aries for the next 14 years and Pluto in Aquarius for the next like 20 years. Yeah, and this is really, I think this really marks the point of like, okay, we've crossed the threshold now. And yes, there's also like Chiron is gonna go into Taurus and retrograde back, but you know, Chiron isn't a planet, Chiron's an asteroid, so I don't take that too much into consideration. But it's really the outers that are now fully in their new timeline, a new era, and so are we. So are we gonna be, at least by this weekend. Yes. There's going to be a separate video on Uranus in Gemini and horoscopes to that. I'm going to keep them interesting because for me, Uranus in Gemini really opens a portal through questions. Gemini is really a sign about curiosity and asking the right questions. It's not necessarily about the answers, you know, Sagittarius is much more about the answers. But Uranus and Gemini is here to remind us that we need to ask better questions. And it really invites curiosity and new ways of thinking and breaking our mental patterns. What I've been saying also in the, when we did with Duna and Katrina, when we did the yearly overview, is that for me, right now, things have kind of been feeling harsh because Uranus has not yet entered Gemini. And I know like in its shadow quality, Uranus and Gemini can definitely talk about overstimulation and mental overloads and like living in the head. And you know, it's going to be even more important to ground and come back to the body. But at the same time, the gift of Uranus and Gemini is really that like childlike curiosity and openness and intellectual freedom. And Uranus and Gemini energy mesh way more together than Uranus and Taurus energy. So even though things will feel even faster, I think it's going to be easier for us to tap into that because now the outers are all going to be in either sextile or trine relationship to one another. And I think whatever Neptune and Pluto have been doing in Aries and in Aquarius has kind of felt a bit like off because Uranus and Gemini hasn't yet asked the right questions. Because questions for me are portals. And they open new worlds. And this is exactly what Uranus is doing, right? Right now, I think we just haven't yet asked the right question. Sometimes problems feel like so much until we break it down and we ask the right question. And then we have that aha moment. And this is what Uranus and Gemini is going to be all about. But regardless, we're going to talk more about this and the archetype in depth in the Uranus and Gemini horoscopes and videos. And I'm gonna start asking you guys super fun questions. Okay, this is gonna be a question horoscope videos. I'm gonna turn the power back to you, so I think it's gonna be a fun one. Well, we also have, you know, this is also going on, okay? On Saturday, we also have Sun squaring Pluto. This is also happening, which can bring internal tension and you know, power dynamics come at play and feeling pressure to transform something. And again, I think the wisdom here is wu wei, you know, don't force anything that doesn't want to happen. But if some things do want to happen and want to be transformed, also lean into it and go into it. And then on Sunday, we also have Mercury in Aries, squaring Jupiter in Cancer. So we have, again, the mind here again with like a lot of emotions and philosophy and like the faith that is coming together. And there can, you know, it's a day that can be prone to overthinking and exaggerations and probably maybe having some big realizations about your needs and what you want and where you need to really step up for yourself. But do also watch for, you know, saying too much or overpromising or mentally overwhelming yourself with everything that is going on. Okay, so this is this week. It's a fun and interesting one. I'm personally super excited for this week. Again, as a Scorpio rising, I am more than happy that Uranus is moving out of my angular houses. And I do think you mutable signs, I think you're much more better equipped to handle the Uranus and Gemini energy. Let me just say it like that, because you're already more prone to like adaptability and everything. Obviously depends on the whole chart. It always depends on the whole chart. But yes, this is what I have for you guys. All of this is building up towards a beautiful full moon in Scorpio that we have on May 1st that is happening next week. And this week for sure is very activating, is very confronting, is very frustrating, but also opening a very, very new direction. And again, I want to come back to the initial quote that I said in the beginning. If you go slow or fast, the path in front of you stays the same. And you decide at the end of the day if you want to go slow or fast. But a mountain in front of you, it's going to stay the exact same. It's not going to move. So this is what I'm going to leave you with, guys. We're going to have a meditation on Saturn, Mars upcoming, and Uranus and Gemini horoscope. So stay excited and stay tuned for that. I'm going to leave you with that, and we're going to talk to each other very soon. Have a lovely day. Lovely week. Bye for now.